Welcome to episode 85. Really appreciate everybody tapping in to this one in advance. Thank you. Thank you in advance, because this one, this one's going to be probably about as real as I've gotten on the show to date. And I have been getting progressively more and more real as I have found my voice on this show and connected with other like-minded individuals, not just in this region, but across the nation. First off, I just want to say something about the episode that my wife, Stephanie, and I were just on with Ozone Layer Media. Huge shout to Rick, Dennis, and Liz for having Stephanie and I on that show to tell our story for the first time ever in a podcast format together, to be able to talk about our upbringing, how we met, our struggles with infertility, with addiction, all sorts of struggles, all sorts of things, beautiful pain that the Lord has used and redeemed in us to help us find other folks that might need to hear the message, or just to know that they're not going through these things alone, that there are people who have, who are, and who will be going through what they're going through as far as mainly infertility goes. And I shared things on that episode that, I've never shared in this format. I could have never imagined myself sharing on a podcast with two other men who were well prepared, had the right posture to lean in and hear our story and hear Stephanie's story, especially the way that they asked questions of Stephanie and were prepared to learn. They had done their diligence beforehand and done some research on what she's been involved in the mental health space, specifically for women. And I was just very impressed. So Dennis and Rick, brothers, anything you ever need, you can call me. And I appreciate you guys, and I love what's happening on Ozone Layer Media. I think 3 weeks ago, they had just surpassed 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. And as of today, they're at like 1.7 thousand. So they're going to continue to skyrocket in growth, being, as far as I know, the only bilingual Spanish and English podcast in our region. As of right now, I'm sure there's others that I'm leaving out and forgetting, but Ozone Layer Media is definitely not just on the map, but they are proving that they can handle just about any conversation. And I'm very excited for those boys, and Liz as well. So having said that, what I brought up on that show has really inspired the subject matter for this episode today. And as I approach 9 years of sobriety from alcohol, as I think about how I'm approaching 1 full year returned back to jiu-jitsu, being a dad now for coming up on 9 years as I celebrate my firstborn daughter's birthday coming up just after mine, I've been reflecting a lot about how I got to this place that I'm in today, and about some of the things that I shared with Stephanie on that show. It's amazing how you can go through therapy, you can go through healing, you can do a lot of heart work, a lot of soul work, a lot of soul care, and think that you've recovered from things in your life or traumas, right? And then something comes up and it triggers those old memories and that old pain. And I did walk away from that episode feeling mostly grateful and healed, because every time we tell our story a little bit more, we heal a little bit more as well. It doesn't have so much power over us, but it also got me thinking about the guys I know, or the guys that listen to this show and I don't have a partnership with or a relationship yet. I don't know you guys. And also some of the ladies. I believe we do have a few ladies that listen to this show. I just have been thinking about the folks that are maybe trapped in addiction right now, or have fallen back into bad health or bad habits, or they, ever since COVID, right? And I told a little bit about my story in little pieces on this podcast and other podcasts, but Before COVID, I was in the best shape of my life. I was doing 30 pull-ups. I had lost 135 pounds, I believe mostly in fat. And I was really kicking butt with my health. And I remember when COVID happened and going through that for 2.5, 3 years, and even still having the effects of COVID, because I do feel like if you really do a search and really look within yourself, I don't think we've ever been the same since COVID, since that time. But as I've looked through just the changes that happened in my mind, my body, my heart, my soul with COVID, and how I've been still recovering from the trauma that happened during those years, I've thought about how it never hurts to revisit some of these things that we feel we've already healed through, to look at it with new eyes and really ask that question, like, am I healed? Do I want to be healed? Do I want to move forward? Or is there part of this that I like holding on to because it feels like it's part of me? And to give it up or to heal from it feels like forsaking the past, or not honoring the past, not honoring the struggles that I've been through to truly heal. Because, when we heal, there's scar tissue left from the wounds. And I'm talking mentally, metaphysically, spiritually, maybe physically as well, surgeries, past diagnoses, all that kind of stuff. There's always a remnant of it, but we can get better, and we can either let that trauma crush us or let it set us free. And something that I have done in the last 10 years specifically is try to use my life as an example of what is possible. When I was morbidly obese, when I was pre-diabetic, when I was on blood pressure medications, when I could have been hospitalized, when I basically say I was slowly dying every day through morbid obesity, hypertension, and pre-diabetes, it was really hard to believe that there were better days ahead, or that better times were coming, right? It was really hard to see that the light at the end of the tunnel wasn't a train coming to hit me square in the face. I remember what happened when I started to give up little things that were not serving me well. Things like I say, it's like the Bible says the body is a temple, right? I started to think about my body and my life account and my mind space, and just how I spent my time as these little accounts and these deposits, and the deposits like that I was putting into these accounts, were they paying off dividends, or were they putting me in more debt? And with my health especially, there was a lot of debt that was happening there. I was literally losing years of my life by walking around with this pain, wearing this pain through, just being blunt, all this fat that had accumulated on my body. And, for anybody who hasn't met me, just take a look at the promo art for our episode with Ozone Layer Media to see how short I am. I'm 5'8" on a good day, and I was almost 300 pounds. I think 299, 298 at my heaviest. So I just say 300 pounds. But carrying all that weight on my frame didn't just do damage to my spine and my bones and my nerves and all that stuff, but it really did a lot to my mentality. And I really didn't believe that I was capable of really fighting anymore. And I remember what that felt like. And so as I started choosing battles to fight, battles that were worth fighting, like discontinuing my drives to McDonald's on the way to work every day and actually packing my lunch, not playing so many video games. I remember the day I decided to quit drinking, May 8th, 2017, the day before my daughter was born. I told my wife, I think this is the last beer I'll ever have. And so far, I've been accurate in that statement. I am grateful for reaching 9 years of sobriety. I'm grateful for also reaching so much time removed from being morbidly obese, for being off of blood pressure medication for almost 10 years now, maintaining my blood pressure, being out of the pre-diabetic range for almost 10 years. Okay. And that's my main point with this episode is that we need to start honoring the people who keep their discipline, or the people who were disciplined, lost their discipline, and found it again. In other words, the people who are consistent, the people who are continuously focused on continuous improvement, because God knows and everybody knows we all love celebrating weight loss. We love celebrating conquering an addiction. We love celebrating the promotion or getting the master's degree or getting the doctorate. All these big milestones, like having our first kid or getting married, paying off a house, paying off a car. But we often fail to recognize or really honor the people who are continuing to stay debt-free, continuing to stay addiction-free, continuing to live in sobriety, continuing to live in better financial stewardship, continuing to be better stewards of their body, the one body that God gave us. We often do not celebrate those people enough. I think part of the reason why is because we get so used to those people, like the Jocko Willinks, the Joe Rogans, the popular folks who just have been in shape or, taking care of themselves forever. We just feel like that's who they are. We don't recognize that they stay who they are because they make hard choices all the time. They make hard choices in all the small decisions, which then feed into the medium-sized decisions and the larger decisions. They have a life of making hard choices, having hard conversations, and facing hard battles all the time. We think that they have it easy. We think that they must, because they're in shape, because they're so smart, because they're well-spoken, all this stuff, that they've got it made, so to say. But what all of them will tell you, and what I will tell you as a person who has lived long enough, mostly disciplined, and beat more demons than I could possibly name through the power of Jesus Christ who lives within me, right? By God's grace, have slayed a bunch of demons. What I will tell you as a qualified source of information, there is never an easy day. There are times where it is so tempting to go back to my old ways, to just say, to throw my hands up and say, man, it's just so hard fighting the good fight. It's so hard staying disciplined when I'm around a bunch of people who are drinking. And occasionally there's the person who says, oh, what's wrong with you? Why don't you have a beer? I say, hey, I'm actually sober. And they go, oh, I'm so sorry. Sometimes I think in my mind, I haven't said this yet. I'm saving it for the right moment. But I want to say, dude, do you think I'm going to relapse with you people? Do you think I'm going to relapse right now? I know that sounds very arrogant of me to say out loud, but to really, for somebody to apologize for consuming something that I was once addicted to in front of me, if that was going to be a problem, I wouldn't even be in that situation. Okay, that's why I can be around people stuffing their faces with pizza or whatever and not judge them and not feel, quote, tempted, because I've built systems in place to make sure that I have a whole new set of habits now, right? So before, when I would have a rough day and I would basically drink an entire six-pack, that was what I did when times were tough. Now what I do is I'll go to jujitsu. I'll go to the gym. I'll have a conversation with a friend. I'll have a talk with my wife. I'll play my guitar. At worst, I'll lose myself in a video game for 45 minutes or an hour or whatever. That to me is better than falling down that route of going back to alcoholism, going back to morbid obesity, going back to a blood pressure that, one day could feel like it's okay, I can manage this, to the next day, which would be like, I should be in the hospital right now. My doctor actually told me 10 years ago, I could hospitalize you right now with your blood pressure, 185 over 130 or 140 or whatever it was. But I often do think in those terms of, it feels like I've always got to have a vice or whatever. So I just picked clean eating, or I picked this thing or that thing or this hobby. jiu-jitsu has been the healthiest one right now, which is hard on my body as an older dude doing old man jiu-jitsu. But all that to say, and go back to the original point, is that we do not honor and celebrate the people enough in our life that are around us. If we have those people around us, if we've started to assemble that tribe of people that's going to inspire us to do better, we don't honor those people enough. So to anybody who's listening, who's stayed disciplined throughout this whole time, just know that I salute you and I think about you often. And when times get tough for me and I feel like burying my face in a couple of hamburgers or going to McDonald's every day to get those chemicals to medicate the pain of life, I do think of you and I think of your example. And all you dudes at TMC, all the women too that I know, you inspire me to be better. And that's why I've put myself in that situation often where I'm actually with you doing hard things and learning hard lessons. The other side of this is the way to motivate people who need to do better in their life. So there's one avenue that we could take with this, and it's the one that's really popular for some reason and actually works on a few people. At one point, it did work for me, and then eventually it stopped, but that is the shame method. The body shaming method, the self-shaming method, the self-hatred of, how did I allow myself to go this far? How do I allow myself to let myself go? When my wife looks at me, how does she even want to stay with me looking like this, acting like this? Those types of thoughts. Like there's that shame that can be productive, but as Chip Dodd said in Voice of the Heart, there's such a thing as toxic shame, which doesn't do anything good for the person experiencing it. Sometimes we do that to people we love. Sometimes we do that to family members, to friends. We will shame them because we think that that's going to motivate them or that's going to get them out. And I think sometimes it comes from a good place, but mostly it comes from a unhealed place. It comes from the word, it's not impingement, but impairment. It comes from a place of impairment. I have had to train myself to recognize that, because I use shame as a motivating factor to both stay the same and then also change for the better in the past. And so I have to be very cautious of shame when it comes around. The other method, and this is going to maybe sound weird, maybe it won't, but it's acceptance. It's accepting who we are, accepting the fact that our choices have gotten us to the point that we're at. And if that's true, that the choices got us to where we are today, that means that new choices can produce a new future state for ourselves, and that we can actually shape the future and choose a different future for ourselves. Ethan Suplee, look him up if you haven't found out about him. He's the actor. He was in a bunch of older movies. He was, I want to say he got up to 500 pounds, and now he has cut a lot of weight. I want to say about 300 pounds. He has this philosophy of killing your clone. And he's meant that in a way of doing just a little bit better every day, so that slowly you're killing the older, more unhealthier version of you, the one from the past, not the older one, because your newer person's older as you age. But people, there's companies that say all you got to do is just beat yesterday. Atomic Habits, James Clear talks about being 1% better every day, or close to 1% better every day. There's that route that we can take. There is a way to make better decisions, to not be overwhelmed. If you find yourself being overwhelmed with these things, your opportunity is to find one thing that you can change. This is where I start to sound like a life coach, or I'm getting all Tony Robbins, but truly, that is what I did. It started with so many other things before I got to alcohol. It started with fast food. It started with my activity level. It started with the route that I took that I chose to walk into to work, choosing to park a little bit further, to get up a little bit earlier to get to the office on time. Whew. Now I'm yawning. I apologize. It's not you, it's me, obviously. Little changes like that led me to, you know what, I think alcohol's next. I had fought a bunch of smaller, more important battles than I had ever fought in my life to get to that point. And then it was, you know what, I think I can do this. I think I can not drink again. And 9 years ago, when I quit drinking, what people don't know, and if you listen to some later media episode, you'll know I was 7 years sober before that. Before my 30th birthday, I had chosen to give up drinking. And so there was some precedent there. Whether there was precedent or not, I knew that it stopped when I wanted it to stop. And that's what I say to you. The addictions, the problems that you have, most, if not all of them, will stop when you decide it's time for them to stop. And that's the brutal truth. And that's the acceptance that I'm talking about. Accepting that I cannot change any of the decisions that led me to get to this point today, but I can choose what I do tomorrow. God gives me the opportunity to wake up tomorrow. Every day is a blessing. Here's what I'm going to do with that day. And if picking what you're going to do with that day is overwhelming, start with what you're going to do first thing when you wake up. It could be, I'm going to make my bed. I'm going to make my bed first thing when I wake up. That's one thing I have control over, a quick win that I can get. I'm gonna make my bed. Or when I take the morning dump after my coffee, I'm gonna leave my phone in the other room and I'm just gonna sit there and do my business without a phone to scroll on. And I'm just gonna do that. I'm just gonna pick that one battle. Then you graduate to, I'm gonna get my breakfast prepped the night before so that I don't need to go to McDonald's in the morning to eat breakfast, which then goes into, what am I going to eat tomorrow? What kind of lunch can I plan for myself? Can I add a banana to my lunch? Can I add some leftovers, that ground beef spaghetti that I made? Can I prep my next day? That then starts to compound into bigger victories. But when you're overwhelmed, when you're feeling the shame, getting to that acceptance and that commitment to just do better with the next decision, I think that's huge. And all that to say, the next and final point that I'm going to make before signing out here, if you've listened this far, is that I have learned that there are moments in my life where I am in settings, or I am in a meeting, or I'm at a social event, or somebody says something about something I said on a podcast, where my position on addiction, my position on health, my position on self-defense, martial arts, my position on being a father and a husband is challenged or questioned. If not directly, indirectly, covertly, through people will talk about certain things around others, but they will not talk about that subject around me because they feel I might have a strong opinion about it. And rest assured, I've lived plenty moments in my life, cringe moments, where I decided to tell people that things were possible for their life because I proved it was possible for me. But I realized nobody really wants a unsolicited life coach barging into their life and giving them feedback or suggestions on things that they never asked that person's help for. I've been in plenty of cringy moments like that, but I've learned over time, and I'm still learning. I need your help with this, those of you who know me, of walking that balance where I am not ashamed or embarrassed to not participate in certain things in this world because I've chosen a different way of living. Because the way that I choose to live isn't, quote, normalized. It is, quote, against the grain. It is maybe stupid in some people's eyes. I'm sure some of you think it's dumb that I do jujitsu past age 40. I could get hurt. I could be disabled. What am I trying to prove? I get that. I get that. I get that rebuttal. Oh, you can't just have a glass of wine. You can't just have one drink, all that stuff. I hear those things, whether people say it or not. Maybe in many ways, that is my old self, or maybe that is the enemy, the devil, right? Or demons, or whatever. Feeling this push, the way of the world, so to say, pushing on me, pushing on my lifestyle. I've come to this point where I will not apologize for the progress that I've made. I will not shrink back. And if that's you, if you've made some big changes in your life that you are deeply proud of yourself for, and that you feel are not popular health opinions, or not popular mental opinions or decisions, spiritual, anything like that, know that you are not alone either. That there are men and women who are waking up, who are discovering, whether it's they've known it all along and they're finally deciding to do something about it, or if it's an awakening that might be happening tomorrow or in 3 years from now. Some people, it takes them a while to figure this out, and some people never figure it out. But the way of the world is not one that has your best interest in mind as a person. And I could unpack that so much, but I think my audience gets it. I think you all get it. That if the world could have its way with us, we would be subscribing to everything that the world handed to us. And there are forces, both seen and unseen, that want us to cave, that want us to just give in and just say, it'd be so much easier if you just acted like everybody else, or you just acted the way the influencers act. You just acted the way the pop stars act. Whoever, insert influential person here. It'd be so much better if you just gave up on some of your convictions and just followed us. And I've realized, like, I ain't about that life. I've chosen a hard life, and I'm not being a martyr here, but truly not drinking, some of the financial choices my wife and I have made, social choices I make, who I decide, the company I decide to keep, my healthcare bullpen, people in my circle, trusted advisors in business or at work, aren't usually the types of personalities that would be considered popular. But I think they're smart. I think they're independent. I think they're like-minded in the way, and maybe this is why I get along with people that are often misunderstood or seem misaligned with the society, is because I think they've got a point, and I can see value in countercultural thought. I can see value in critical thought, independent thought. I do also believe that there's times where groupthink might be good, might motivate some goodness. But when it comes to my role, my lane in life on this show, with the people I keep company with, we're really countercultural. Critical thought. Critical thought's huge. Huge for me and my tribe. So again, I'm going to continue to take this stance and be open to new information everywhere because I'm always focused on continuous improvement. There are values, though, that I will never compromise. And by now, if you've been with me through this journey in the last 3 years, from layoff to business ownership to podcasting to full-time full-time employee owner status with the company that I'm with, you know, and this message resonates with you somehow. So again, I do this in every solo episode, but I ask if you want to connect with me, shoot me a message. I'm not hard to find. All my information is in the show notes. I will be hopefully going on another one of my favorite local podcasts here very soon, and hope to discuss some more cool little things that have happened in the last year and some other popular topics that I think are popular in the world right now. So I just really thank you. Thank you for sticking through it in this journey. And until next time, I'll see you in episode 86. We might have a guest. It might be just me. Either way, we're going to keep chugging. Appreciate you.